Well, I just got back from a vacation down in Cancun, and let me tell you, the beer scene in Mexico is way different than what we have up here. You're not going to find a West Coast IPA, an East Coast IPA. Shoot, you won't even find a pale ale. What you do find everywhere are lagers. And really, if you think about it, there's nothing wrong with that. You're on the beach, hanging around all day, sipping on a beer, having a little 4.5% crisp lager really does a pretty good job. Now, there's all kinds of lagers out there. One that we kind of favored as we experimented around was the Negra Modelo, just a little more fortified. And I thought that this was appropriate for the video I'm doing today because I do want to focus on the lagers. Lagers such as this one that I fermented while I was down in Mexico and finished once I got back. So let me put this one down. And we'll briefly talk about what really does it take to make a nice lager. Because there's a little mystery around it, a little more, I'd say, discipline, maybe a little more feature-rich equipment, but it's really not that hard. So first off, in the brewing process, the ale and the lager, same exact thing. You're gonna mash, you're gonna sparge, boil, add your hops. If you're on the extract side, simply boil your extract, add your hops, and into the fermenter it goes. Now this is where it really starts to become different. The temperatures for the lager fermentation are going to typically be around 55 degrees Fahrenheit. So you're going to need to have a way to control your temperature. Either a carboy, maybe inside of a fermentation chamber, or in my case, with the conical fermenter, I have the glycol chiller, so I can keep those temperatures precise within about 1 degree either way. So that's the first thing. The second thing is your yeast. You're going to want a bigger pitch size versus when you are brewing an ale. So if you use, say, a White Labs or White Yeast vial, maybe you're going to want to use 2 of them. If you want to go that route, you can maybe consider imperial yeast, where it already has twice the cell count as the predecessors. If you don't want to do that, at least do a yeast starter. And on my site, there's plenty to talk about regarding yeast starters. Either way, you want to have a high pitch count and viable yeast, not something that's been sitting around in your fridge for the last 3 months. You really need that healthy yeast to get that thing going. Now, the next thing you're going to notice is the overall time required for that lager is going to be longer. The fermentation cycle is going to linger versus what it is on the ale side. For me, on this last batch, I brewed it about 1.5 weeks before I left for Mexico. I was down there for about 1.5 weeks, so it's about 3 weeks of fermentation to finally ferment all the way out. When I got home, I did the next step, which is very, very important, and you need to have that diacetyl rest. And really all that is bringing your temperatures up a bit. For me, I let it free rise to about 64, 65 degrees. And in doing so, it's going to re-stimulate the yeast and allow it to do the cleanup that it needs to do to make sure you don't have a diacetyl problem later in the game. The other thing you may want to consider is to do a forced diacetyl test. And it's pretty simple. You can find out a lot of that on the web, but I'll just casually talk about it here. You're going to take a sample of your beer. You're going to warm it up to about 170 degrees. Put a cap on it, let it sit there for 30 minutes, let it cool down, and then give it a good sniff and a taste. And if you have the precursors for diacetyl, you will definitely notice it in there. And if that's the case, just give it a couple more days. Give it time to really do that cleanup process, then crash and go ahead and package. Now, once I finished my diacetyl rest with this batch, I just left it in the fermenter for probably 2, maybe 3 weeks, just cold conditioning before I actually put it in the kegs. And through that, you get a really nice, crisp, clean beer out of it. The final thing I'll talk about, let me grab this one more time, is that when I do a lager, I always use some kind of post-fermentation fining. I've done a lot with gelatin, and you can see that on my website. I've also done a lot with biofine. This particular one here, that was clarified with biofine. So just kind of two different ways to skin a cat. Both are really good, reliable. I'm kind of leaning towards the biofine approach these days. And again, you can, on my website, you can see comparisons of one versus the other and make up your own decisions there. But man, that's a good looking beer. So there you have it. Different steps, kind of down the same path as what you're doing with an ale, but pay attention to these other sensitivities, largely around temperature, and you're going to wind up with a really nice beer. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the winter, and we'll catch up with you later. Take care. Oh, what? You're still here? There's one other thing I want to cover. Glad you stuck around. Hang on a second. Just want to top that off as I talk to you. Now, I realize a lot of people don't have the equipment needed to do that process I just described, but there is a way to still achieve a nice lager using an ale-like process. I'm going to put links in the description below of some of my work in that area. It's achieved by using soft lager 3470 yeast. It's a very tolerant yeast for higher fermentation temperatures. And basically you can go through your standard ale process using that yeast and come out with a really nice crisp lager. I do it a lot because, as described earlier, when you do a true lager, it's going to tie up your gear for quite a while. You're looking at maybe 6 weeks altogether. If you got the time, hey, it's great. If you don't have the time, going that other way will do a lot to help you out. So again, if you want to try a lager, you don't have the temperature control that I just described, take a look at the link below, maybe up here too, and you might want to give that a shot. Super easy, great results all the time. So thanks again for watching. We'll catch up with you later. Take care now.